According to our sources, Diddy is not being housed in a solitary cell. And what's more surprising, the sources say he can still get his free con, so to speak. There is apparently a secret system that inmates on the block all seem to know about, a way to spy on the female inmates who are housed one floor below them.
Diddy Combs has been denied bail in connection with the sexual abuse and sex trafficking charges he faces. And as Les Trent reports, the music mogul who once traveled by private jet to all those mansions is now in a jail that is notorious for its bad living conditions.
I thought there's no way there could be some way to contact the ladies down below, but tell me how it worked.
It's a dormitory Puff Daddy's in. He's not in cells. So there's a big dorm with a bunch of bunks, and then there's a little room where you go into, and it's like a workout area. But it's not really a yard, you would say. It's just like with gates, like you see right there in the building. And you could literally lay down, and the females are right below you, and you could just yell at them, and they yell back, and basically like you could kind of see them and they could see you a little bit, but you have to watch out for the guards, obviously. But you can talk with them and, show each other some things sometimes, which I never did any of that.
The Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn is notorious for its appalling living conditions and rampant violence. How bad is it inside this federal lockup? There have been 2 murders, 4 suicides, and numerous stabbings and lockdowns in recent years. It's so out of control inside that 4 federal judges are reportedly refusing to send any more prisoners here. Donald Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen, spent a harrowing year in federal custody. He says for someone used to a life of luxury like Diddy, prison life is a severe shock.
You have a desk, you have a plastic chair, you have your bed with a 1.5-inch mattress, no pillow, and you also have a locker. So you basically have 3 feet by 5 feet to move around. So you have a basic 15 square feet. It is a horrible, horrible place.
Diddy's lawyers were so eager to keep him out of jail, they offered his palatial $48 million home in Miami Beach and his private jets as bail. Today, they are even offering to restrict female visitors to his homes, except for his mother, daughters, and the mothers of his children if he is released. They told the judge the jail he was being sent to is dreadful, dirty, inhuman, and an ongoing tragedy.
How's your dad doing? How's your dad doing?
Family members appeared somber as they arrived at federal court in Manhattan today in another attempt to get out on bail. The judge cited Diddy's history of violent temper and potential intimidation of witnesses.
I'm Sierra Gillespie, and this is Law and Crime News. 54-year-old Sean P. Diddy Combs is entering his 4th week behind bars. being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. It's a far cry from his lavish life and mansions in Miami and Los Angeles, but ironically, it was the evidence collected at those mansions that put Diddy in jail in the first place. Back in March, federal investigators raided Diddy's homes in Florida and California.
To hop in and shame 50 Cent.
We now have a better idea about what investigators were collecting, including multiple AR-15 rifles with the serial numbers removed, a drum magazine, and illegal drugs. But Diddy doesn't face any charges for possession of those items. Instead, it was the electronic evidence that led to Diddy's charges. On September 16th, he was indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. A main topic discussed in this indictment was freak-offs, described as elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during, and often electronically recorded. And the government alleges these freak-offs were not consensual. The indictment lays out a pattern of abuse that Diddy would often follow, drugging or forcing the victims to drink alcohol that was oftentimes laced with something, sexually assaulting these victims, and then forcing them to have sex with a prostitute. Now, the feds say they have evidence of these freak-offs because Diddy often recorded them.
To establish his very own imprint, Bad Boy Entertainment. Since their initial collaboration, Diddy and Clive Davis have nurtured a strong alliance, albeit amidst occasional controversies.
To hop in and shame 50 Cent for being a hypocrite.
His frustrations on Instagram, pointing out what he perceives as an unjust situation in the music business involving Diddy. According to Mace, despite Diddy originally acquiring his... In 2022, a notable incident unfolded involving a figure well known to both music moguls.
Cloud storage accounts, and storage devices. They allege Diddy used the sensitive, embarrassing, and incriminating recordings that he made during the freak-offs as collateral to ensure the continued obedience and silence of the victims. So these same recordings that were once used to keep victims quiet are now being used to prosecute Diddy in a sex trafficking scheme that goes back decades. The allegations against Diddy go back a while too, with survivors reporting abuse as far back as 1991.
When agents from Homeland Security Investigations approach and separate him, they place Combs under arrest and lead him out the front door in handcuffs. His lawyer said Combs had come to New York 2 weeks earlier with the intention of turning himself in. He did not expect the agents to be waiting at his hotel last Monday night.
Diddy to be locked up in one of the most rundown and violent jails in the US. For that, we'll turn to criminal defense attorney and law and crime legal analyst Imran Ansari, who repped other high-profile defendants like Harvey Weinstein and 50 Cent. I'm Sierra Gillespie, and this is Law and Crime News. All right, so big news out of New York, where P. Diddy has been held for more than a week in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. This comes after Diddy's arrest last Monday, following his indictment by a federal grand jury. Force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The 14-page indictment lays out some pretty strong claims against Diddy, alleging he's guilty of sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The indictment goes on to allege Diddy showed a pattern of abuse, mostly against women, that included verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse, including the use of extensive grooming tactics. There's also mention of something referred to as freak-offs. Which are described as elaborate and produced sex performances that Combs arranged, directed, masturbated during, and often electronically recorded. During these so-called freak-offs, Diddy would often drug his victims, sometimes without their knowledge, to keep them obedient and compliant. Then, Diddy allegedly required these victims to have sex with prostitutes, and oftentimes he recorded that too. Again, these recordings were made without the victim's knowledge or consent.
Welcome back to the Kempire Channel, your #1 source for pop culture news and music, entertainment, reality TV, and so much more. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. Guys, if you enjoy content like this, make sure you come to our Kempire After Dark live experience in Los Angeles this Wednesday, November 20th at the Bourbon Room, Hollywood. And then we're coming to London. Reality TV, and so much more. We'll be in London on December 8th at Neon 194. Then we're coming back to Washington, D.C. on January 24th. More information on the Kempire After Dark live experience, LA, London, and DC shows will be available in the description. So, you know, we've been covering the Diddler for months now at this particular point. As you know, he is trying for a third time to get out of jail. He's facing charges for trafficking, all kinds of stuff. We've gone through all those details, but we did a separate video just a few weeks ago where People magazine says that Diddy still has power and influence even from inside this jail. And that is important to note because this new information might be the reason why for a third time he will be denied bail.